Welcome back to the Have Not Room. I'm joined here by Chad. Where Brian's taking a week off again, but that's okay. We're back here again to talk about some Big Brother Canada 9. The last time we checked in, it was right before Kyle's eviction, which we were talking about at the time. So we have a little bit to catch up on here before we're heading into our double eviction later this week. Yeah, let's just jump right into it. So, Chad, what were your thoughts on? I guess we already mostly eulogized Kyle. You know, we kind of predicted that he would go home. It was expected. There wasn't a ton to really kind of go over from the start of that eviction episode. So we can just go right into this invisible HoH twist that we also kind of previewed. What are your thoughts on the execution of this twist?
Yeah, no, I think the execution of the Invisible HoH was pretty well done. The way the comp showed how, it was their live reactions and everything. And the way the comp played out, I thought was pretty interesting, especially there being a tiebreaker and having that little incentive for someone to quit early if they're, if they stink. And I think it adds a lot of good conversation pieces in the house, given that Tina let everyone know, hey, I got my letter. And then Tara was pretty vocal with everyone about being in the tiebreaker, about losing it. So in terms of the comp and the way it played out, I thought it was awesome. The actual twist in the house was fun to watch, and I was kind of baffled that it took them so long to really figure it out. Like, they kept saying, I still have no idea. Like, the whole week, it was just like, oh my God. Like, how do you not know? How do you not have, at least, 3 people that you can kind of narrow it down to? I think they did to a degree, but everyone's like, it's got to be Tashawn. I'm like, are you really, guys? I mean, he played it up very bad that it wasn't him, but I think it was good. I like that twist a lot. I would love to see it again.
Yeah, no, I think it was really interesting. I thought the comp was good. It was another one of these ones where it's kind of one of those things that anybody can win, right? It's a very niche, kind of weird skill style comp that you don't really need. You don't really need to be very smart. You don't really need to be very good at memory or very strong or very good at endurance. It's kind of crapshooty. So I like that they've been having more and more of those comps, especially as HoHs, and leaving kind of the more heavy skill based ones for vetoes. I think that's probably the better way to do it. I thought it was a little bit. I think they kind of dragged it on a little bit long on the Sunday episode, where probably could have been a couple minutes shorter in terms of getting to the conclusion of that competition. Because you could only watch people counting rocks that are falling for so long before you kind of get the point.
We get it.
Yeah. But
I watched all 470 of them drop, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. We basically saw the entire however many 43 minutes of the competition based off of the tiebreaker answer. But yeah, no, it was interesting. I think that this is a good comp for this type of twist, because if you have a comp that's very oriented in a certain skill, it could make guessing who the HOH is a lot easier. So if there's an endurance comp, like a wall comp, that's secret, you can kind of narrow it down to the people that you think are more likely to win a wall comp. If there's one that's heavy in strength, you can narrow it down to the people who are stronger. So I think having kind of a more crapshooty, niche skill comp like this is very integral to making this twist work. And yeah, I think it would be interesting to see it in the future. I know we talked about it, especially as a potential first HoH, because it could negate this idea of a big alliance forming around the first HoH of the season if nobody knows who it is. And then also on top of that, something else that we mentioned as a possibility is if there is an invisible HoH, but the invisible HoH doesn't even know it's them. So everybody makes secret nominations, and you don't actually know whether or not, even if you make the same nominations as somebody else, you don't know if it's you or if it's another person who just happened to make the same nominations as you. and that way you kind of have to strategize with everybody, and it's a lot more of an open playing field, and it's a lot more kind of chaotic. I don't know what do you think about that?
I was just running through like a ton of scenarios on what would I do if I'm in an alliance, and we know that's the twist.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, and I mean, at that point, I think that'd be awesome if like no one even knew they were the HOH.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could picture strategies like, okay, we're all in the same alliance. Let's say we're the Sunsetters, and everyone knows like, okay, we're putting Austin and Braden, but if everyone says, okay, it's Austin then Braden, and then all the Sunsetters go Braden Austin, then you can kind of, I mean, I guess it depends on how they actually like show the nominations, if they do it in the order you nominated them. But like, I think fun little things like that would start showing up, like like in Survivor they say put a little smiley at the end of your vote kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of like fun little strategies would pop up with that. I think it'd be amazing gameplay for people to not know who the HOH is. But yeah, I think that's like the next step of what they could do with the invisible HOH.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that is interesting. I didn't even think about like being able to have the same nominations but in a different order, and like using that to try to like
because you got to think like probably like the whole house would probably be pretty set on like nominations. I mean, there's obviously a lot more room to make more moves, but if 7 people all making the same exact nomination, how can you really trust that specific person? But if all of your alliance does it in a specific order, it's a little different.
Yeah.
I don't know, just thinking out loud. But I think there's a lot of cool moves you can do there.
I do think it probably limits, like doing it that way probably limits the ability for people to make like a big move in terms of a renom in particular.
Yeah.
Because you don't really have, like, if you make initial noms, but you're not 100% sure that you're still the HOH, even if those are your noms, like, you can't really set up some sort of backdoor situation or a renom situation in any, like, concrete way. Because if you put the work in and you end up not being the HOH, you're screwing yourself. But if you don't put the work in and you're like blindsiding somebody and you don't really have it set up for them to go, then you're also screwing yourself. So I think it might end up leading to more safe gameplay, which probably isn't the greatest. But yeah, we'll see. I think as far as Big Brother Canada twists goes, this was definitely high tier on in a franchise where they historically have really poorly designed and poorly thought out twists. This was one of the good ones.
No, I agree. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. All right. So it takes a while for Feats to come back, unfortunately, after the that Kyle eviction, and so we don't actually know for quite a while until Feats come back. I believe on like late Friday. Who the invisible HOH is, and then they come back for about an hour or two, and pretty quickly, based off of the way she's acting and the things she's saying to people and to the cameras, it becomes abundantly clear that the invisible HOH is Victoria.
ICV, she's not hiding anything, man.
Yeah, no. A lot of people in the house say, like, oh, Victoria's a great liar. She's like, she's so sneaky, but I don't know. I feel like she really, like, tells a lot of things on her face. Like, she lets a lot of her emotions and her lies kind of, like, sit on her face pretty well.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, and so at that point, people start speculating, okay, who's she going to put up? Is she going to take a shot at Ty and Jed here? Who's she going to try to blame? There was speculation she might be going after Ty and Jed and trying to blame Ro. And then at a certain point, it seems that like she's trying to make it seem like Beth is the invisible HOH, and she starts telling people, "Oh no, I'm just going to be putting up Braden and Austin, or even Ro and Austin was an option at some point." And so that's kind of where we stand. What do you think about Victoria's decision here to use her HOH to target? Eventually, she ends up targeting Braden and Austin. Do you think this was a good use of her HOH?
I think it's a safe move, not as flashy as she makes it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see Austin as this huge threat I don't know why. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think she's as big of a threat as Jed and Ty are. I mean, obviously, I want Jed to win here, but
Right.
but no, like, how do you not take that shot? How do you not even like put like? I honestly, I don't see a reason why not to put Jed and Ty up. Like, even then, if you put it like Beth and Ty, like, God forbid Jed wins HOH, but taking the shot at Austin and Braden, yeah, it breaks up a duo that you're not a part of, obviously, and it gives you like a little leverage maybe, but I don't know. I think she like clearly just picked a side here, went with them, and then tried to just play it off so she can still ride that middle lane, with Kiefer, Tina, and Tara, but I don't know. It was a little sloppy to me. I mean, it worked out, I guess, but not too well for this week.
Yeah, no. I from everything that Victoria has done in her gameplay, it's pretty much become abundantly clear to me that her entire game plan from the very start has been built around trying to supplant whoever she sees as the third to Ty and Jed. So originally it was LaToya, and now she's trying to set Beth up during this HOH to take the fall so that she can potentially get people targeting Beth so that she can supplant Beth and be the third to Jed and Ty. And this just seems like fundamentally like a bad idea and a bad strategy to put all of her eggs in the basket of two guys who clearly don't value her in the game in any meaningful way outside of just using her as a number or using her to execute certain plans for them because she's the HOH and she's been the HOH now 2 out of 3 weeks in a row. But yeah, I definitely think that targeting Austin and Braden was incorrect. Everyone, like we mentioned this as well on the podcast we did last time with where it was Austin and Kyle up on the block, and there was speculation about like whether they would flip the vote and take Austin out instead because she was like this big comp threat because she won one endurance comp, and it's just I just don't see it. And from everything I've seen of Austin, who eventually is going to go out at the end of this week, is she's just not like cut out for Big Brother, right? This is something we also talked about in the preseason, where she doesn't have the age and the experience to really bring herself into this social game, and I don't know. I don't really understand why people saw her as a threat.
I don't know. I mean, maybe because she was the pretty girl in the house, or I mean, I think it's 100% coming from her comp ability that she did well in 2 comps. One being the stupid, like, the shuffleboard one or whatever the hell that game is. But even then, like, that's kind of like a semi-chance comp. Like, there's a very limited skill range there. But I still don't see Austin as a major threat. Even socially, all she does is just, like, chit-chat with Braden all day.
Yep.
She's not in any major alliance. She's, like, the perfect definition of a floater to me. And her getting so much just, like, credit almost it's ridiculous to me. I think they definitely should have I don't know. I think there's a better move to make if you're an invisible HOH and people already think it's Deshaun. Like, just take the shot and then, like, yeah, you put him up and obviously everyone knows it's not him, but, like, then who cares who it is? Blame anyone on the other side of the house. I think it was such a wrong move. It was a very, like, just safe, like, lame duck move to me with such a good twist and such, like, real potential where people still have no idea who the hell it was.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's like she didn't like we talk about like, oh, everyone thinks she's a great liar, but she didn't like really do the best job of keeping it a secret for the longest time. By about halfway through the week, everybody except for Austin, Braden, and Roe like knew she was the HOH, and eventually even Austin, Braden, and Roe caught on because she like let it slip. Oh, she had said something to imply that she didn't have a vote, and then she said something about the number of comp wins that she had that implied that she had won an extra comp that She, shouldn't have theoretically won because, she included the invisible HOH when in talking about her comp ability. And so it's just a matter of, she's a very, sloppy, messy player. And on top of that, she's just making fundamentally incorrect decisions. And that's never a good combination, right? If you're going to make safe moves, you have to do it in a safe way. And if you're going to be messy, you have to at least, make ballsy moves because that's going to go along with your messiness. You can't, have half of one, half of the other. It's just going to create chaos, and it's just going to make people pissed off at you. And there's plenty of people who end up pissed off at Victoria after both of her HOHs. So yeah, we have now Austin and Braden sitting on the block for the first time. And, we end up getting into our veto comp for the week, which is some kind of, puzzle thing with putting together a puzzle bridge and then a big 3D puzzle thing. It's 30% physical, 70% puzzle, right? We come back, and the winner of this veto is none other than Rohan for the second week in a row. And previously to this, Ro had been talking with Austin and Braden and saying, "Oh yeah, if I win it, I'm using it on one of you." And we come back from the veto comp, and Austin and Braden are like, "Okay, so you're using the veto, right?" And he was like, "Well, the thing is." I don't know. What are your thoughts on Ro's decision here in terms of his decision to use the veto and also his execution?
I mean, he said in the DR, these are my two closest allies. Then what are you doing? Yeah. If those are your two closest allies, take one of them off. Ideally, you take Austin off, and then I don't know who the replacement nom would have been in that scenario, but I
think even if
Beth. Probably,
yeah.
But if it's Beth, who doesn't vote out Beth there? You'd be the stupidest player in that house not to vote Beth, unless obviously you're in an alliance. But that's an easy vote off. See you later. And then the Sunsetters are pretty much just Jet and Ty at that point because, Kiefer would abandon ship real quick. Not that he basically already hasn't, but I think him not using it was very dumb. I see the argument oh, well, I don't know who the nom would be, but also who cares? It's your two closest allies. You take one of them off, and that's it. It looks terrible on Ro, and I don't know. I just don't get that move. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't get it.
No, I agree. I think the thing that is missing is that Ro doesn't know who the HOH is with certainty. So he's actually mostly thinking at this point when he's making the decision that the HOH is Ty. And so his assumption is that somebody like Tara would go up or Tina would go up as a pawn, and the person between Austin and Braden he is left on the block would just be sent home anyways. And so now he's using the veto, not even saving both Austin and Braden, and pissing off theoretically everybody else in the house who doesn't want him to use the veto. People, especially pissing off somebody like Tara or Tina, or both of them even as a pair, because one of them would have to go up in the block in their place as a pawn and putting them in danger. So I think that Ro is just kind of overestimating his ability to socially rebound from one of Austin and Braden leaving, and assuming that the other one is just going to have to get over it anyways because they're also going to be losing their closest ally and will probably end up having to work with them regardless. So I think it's a combination of him miscalculating the social structure of the house and his own abilities to improve his position, and also him not knowing with confidence who the HOH is, so kind of mispredicting who would their replacement nom would be. Because in my opinion, if Ro uses the veto, I think that Victoria puts up Beth as a replacement nominee. And like you said, I think there are votes there to get rid of Beth. If Tina and Tara want to take out Beth, Tina, Tara, Roe, and whoever Roe takes off the block become a majority because it's 7 votes. And the 4 of them can decide to take Beth out if they want. But yeah, I think it's just that he didn't know that would happen. And
yeah,
I think that, Victoria didn't want that to happen, but she probably should have wanted that to happen. And that just wasn't communicated to him, and he just didn't have that info. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I totally get why. I just if he just had a little bit more information, or just was a little more ballsy with it, he could have done it, and it would have definitely been an interesting to see what would have happened there, for sure. But like you said, I think that's probably accurate. If not Beth, probably Tara. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even Tina or Tara, because you could use Tina took the card, so put her up. Brayden, see you later.
Yeah. No, I mean the bluff I think was for Tina or Tara to go up because Roe is still somewhat close to Tina and Tara. He sees them as potential allies, at the very least potential short-term allies, insofar as that all of them are planning on taking a shot at Jed and Ty if they get power.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the reservation to burn those relationships, especially if you're not confident about who is going to go up. I do think it is funny though that he is talking about how not using the veto is the smart strategic brain move, and using the veto would be the heart move, even though in reality if he had perfect information, doing the thing that he considers the emotional move would probably actually be correct. But that's just kind of how it is sometimes.
Yeah, no, I think it's tough. I totally understand why Roe was so upset about it. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I bet he regretted that immediately. But hey, that's Big Brother, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe in hindsight, if he had, if he knew that it was possible for them to get Beth out, he would probably feel that way. I don't even know if he has that info now, though. Even though he knows now that Victoria was the invisible HoH. But yeah, it's Roe isn't going to be in a bad spot no matter what. At this point, Roe is in a spot where he probably has to win out if he wants a chance to win this game. So it's possible. Yeah, we'll talk about it, but it would be even more impressive than the Kevin Martin BBCAN9 run. It would be him being immune from the final 10 on, as opposed from the final 7 or 8 on that Kevin was. But it's theoretically possible. He'd have to win 5 out of the next 9 competitions, something like that. But it's possible.
You can't doubt the POV kick.
The Roe show, yeah.
Roe show rolls on.
Yeah. The Roe show with a veto. Yeah.
Oh God, Benny.
So yeah, we end up Austin and Brayden stay on the block. We get to the Thursday night eviction episode here, and I think we basically see the entirety of the campaigning that Austin and Brayden do for the week in that one episode. And I believe that segment was still shorter than the sponsored food fight segment. So that kind of gives you an idea of how hard Austin and Brayden were working to fight. In terms of that, though, I want to at least acknowledge that Brayden is very confident the whole week that he's going to be staying. So it at least makes some sense that he wouldn't campaign hard. You usually don't want to do anything that might upset the status quo if you're confident that you're fine.
Yeah.
But the fact that Austin does literally no campaigning basically for the entire week is it's just really disappointing. Yeah, I mean
we saw it last week too. I feel no one really.
Yeah.
This season, I've noticed it at least a few times now. When you're on the block, people don't really campaign. At least it's not showing the episodes. It's what the hell are we doing? If I'm on the block post veto, I'm scrambling.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking to everyone. I'm checking in. I'm trying to plant seeds. But I feel one conversation to Beth, it's not enough to save you. And I think there is a chance. Like if she fights hard enough, she stays.
Yeah.
Honestly.
No, I think there is like a legitimate argument. Like Brayden is way more socially connected than Austin is. Like he has started this kind of like flirtmance thing with Ty that we'll talk about, especially headed into this current week. He is has a much better relationship with Ro. He has done a better job of repairing his relationship with Beth. I think that he's just kind of overwhelmingly more likable in terms of like the house dynamic than Austin has been. So I think there is an argument from Austin's perspective that like Brayden's a bigger social threat than me. But instead, like you see multiple times throughout the week, Austin is like speaking in a way where I don't think that she like fully internalized the fact that either her or Brayden are going. Like after the POV ceremony, there were numerous times where she would be like, she would campaign to somebody, but she would campaign in a way that like, oh, save me and Brayden. And it's like, I just didn't think that she like, I think that she just couldn't like, it's kind of like a shock, thing, like a, I don't know. Sometimes where you just like you go through something and you just like don't internalize it, so like you just speak as though it's not reality, and so I feel like that's what Austin was doing for most of the week, where she just didn't really believe in within herself the reality that either her or Brayden was leaving, and it's
maybe she didn't. Did she not just not want to campaign against Brayden? Maybe. I mean, we saw that with her last week too with Kyle.
No, yeah, she definitely didn't want to campaign against Brayden, but even beyond that, the way she would even campaign to Ro about like, oh, you should use the veto on me and Brayden, or you should, after Ro doesn't use the veto, campaigning to Tina and Tara saying, it's in your best interest to keep me and Brayden in the house because it's another pair. And it's like, wait, what?
We kind of can't do that.
Yeah, it's literally not physically possible within the rules of the game. And just a lot of the arguments she made, it came off to me like she didn't really fully internalize ever throughout the week that either her or Brayden was going to leave. And obviously that's going to significantly impact your ability to play the game and like save yourself. Austin seems like a sweet girl. I just don't think that Big Brother is like, I think that she was in over her head, honestly, with this game. We kind of saw this from the first week where her HoH was kind of a hot mess, and since then, like, she basically just like kind of slunked off into the corner and just spent 24/7 with Brayden, just like chit-chatting and gossiping and just like, having their little one-on-one talks, and her like completely isolating herself from everybody else in the house, up until she started a showmance with the guy who was getting evicted like 3 days before the eviction. And it's like, I don't know. I don't want to bash on her too long or too hard, but like I just don't. There was never anything that Austin showed me that really gave me any hope for her in the game. So
no, she didn't. She wasn't flashy. She didn't make any good moves. She didn't even really fight for herself.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I just feel like, oh, I'm here for just to be here. Okay, good for me. But I think that whole like, I hate when players do that where they just kind of like stick to like kind of the people they like the most and don't even like bother with other people in the house. Because like Big Brother is one of those games, like obviously I don't think anyone walks into Big Brother and you're not going to get along with every single player unless you're that type of person, which is very rare. So like if you make that clear, and if you really only stick to one person or even like two, you're not gonna go far. It's not gonna work. And Austin is the perfect example of that.
Yeah, I mean, like Big Brother is a game about like social connections, right? At its most fundamental level. So like, if you just refuse to put the work in to form social bonds with other players, you're just setting yourself up for failure, from the start. Like even if you don't even if, she doesn't like Beth, she realizes that Beth is, has been, working her over for a week and a half, and she like starts to not like Beth on a personal level. You can't like go into a conversation with Beth and like show that on your face and like refuse to like have a conversation with her. Like you can't play with like that level of like emotional lack of control and like succeed in any way in this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that was part of her downfall.
Yeah, and you can actually see this on the like the other side of the coin with Ty and Jed, who are like pretty social with everybody, like regardless of whether they like them, regardless of whether they're working with them strategically. They're just naturally social people who have like formed good bonds with people, and like despite the fact that Ty and Jed have made a lot of mistakes in the game, that combined with some luck has carried them into a position where they're probably the two most likely winners of the game at this point, just by like clearing the very low bar of putting in social work with people.
Yeah, people like you. They want you to stay around. Simple as that.
Yeah.
If they don't like you, they'll find a reason to vote you off. Like, oh, remember that time you won one comp? You're a huge threat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look at Jed and Ty. They're both like super Jed. Jed won like a comp that wasn't even that physical, arguably, like the puzzle comp. Like, yeah, it's probably like 40% physical, but like I don't think if you're the fastest man alive, it's not gonna like benefit you that much in that comp. You got to solve the damn puzzle.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Call me crazy. Big Brother's about friendship, man.
Yeah.
What was that? BB18.
Well, yeah, it's about friendship and about pissed. Yeah. I think that like on the other side, Tara is a good example of like how being unlikable is like going to be detrimental to your game, even if it's strategically correct for people to want you to stay. Like there are people who are targeting Tara when it's not at all correct for them to do so, simply because they don't like her. And like you can only be so unlikable or so like chaotic or so, this whatever negative quality, like to a point where people are like, oh, this person could be a goat for me. But like if you even go beyond that, like people just don't even want to deal with you, right? And we'll talk about like kind of being the case with Victoria after this, kind of chaotic HoH week.
Man.
But
it's a house of extremes here.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think that this season is very entertaining, but it's also very instructive as far as just like demonstrating kind of basic tenets of Big Brother and like Big Brother 101, because a lot of these players are not, like the best players in this house are like above average players at best. So everyone is making mistakes, and the mistakes are actually very instructive for people if they care about, improving if future players care about using it as like a little bit of a blueprint of what not to do.
Yeah. There's some very good like look this person up in the dictionary to see, find this definition.
Yeah.
Kind of players.
Yep.
But, yep.
Yeah, so we say goodbye to Austin Duqua, our last pre-juror, who leaves by 7-0 vote on last eviction. And we hear from Arissa that next week will be our double eviction, probably the only double eviction for the season, given the cast size, which is very exciting. This is going to be a really crazy week. A lot of potential fallout here that we'll get into, and we're going to potentially have two big players leaving in one night and really kind of setting up our endgame here. And then we head into our HoH comp, which is a memory comp, a classic. They get woken up in the middle of the night over and over again and have to memorize a bunch of things that they see on a screen. Pretty standard Big Brother comp. What do you think about this one? Anything stand out?
I love these kind of comps where they just like piss them off all night.
Oh yeah.
And then listen to people like recant things in their head. But yeah, I mean, this was another just standard Big Brother comp, it's a classic one. I always love this one because like it screws with them the whole night, and they gotta wake up, do the comp. It's just, and everyone's like a little off because they're so tired. But no, this is a good one. I always love this comp. It's fun.
Yeah. There was a twist on this one that was in Big Brother Canada 7, which was interesting, where they threw them like this late night party where they all got hammered, and then they woke them all up at like 4:30 in the morning the next morning, and they were all hungover, and they had to answer questions about the party.
Oh no!
And it was like just absolutely brutal, and they're like, like some of them are like throwing up in a bucket. And they're all like very clearly like barely like conscious. It's like, that's brutal. At least they didn't do that one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's an awesome comp.
Yeah. Really kind of shows you don't want to go so overboard. Like I know people get bored in the house. They want to drink. They want to have a good time. But you got to keep your wits about you, especially. You don't want to get blackout drunk in the Big Brother house. Usually not a great idea.
I mean, how do you not take that chance? But
yeah.
No, I get that's a fun comp though. I never even thought of like actually like making them recant like doing something like, oh, that's just so awesome.
Yeah.
Rather than just like make them all super tired, like just get them all freaking popped. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Just. Really creative, interesting comp idea. Maybe it's something they could port to BBUS at some point if they ever want to give them alcohol again, and anything that's more than like a bottle of wine and like a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah, we don't get that in BBUS too much.
Yeah.
We get like we get like a jury feast and then like a final 3 feast. That's really it.
Yeah, they don't give them. They don't. It's been a while since there's been like a big party with a lot of booze and BBUS, but
they're on a budget, all right? They're on a budget.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the reason. Yeah, yeah, because that like a few cheap bottles of wine and like a lot of they can get like they can't afford like $150 worth of wine and beer, right?
You can't afford a conception in the Big Brother house.
True, yeah. They can afford all of the Danny and Tyler's vegan food, but not like wine and beer. But yeah, we're a little off topic here. So we end this HoH comp, and we have our new HoH of the week. Something that we didn't know was that Victoria was actually allowed to play in this HoH comp. We weren't really sure in our last podcast whether that would be the case, or like she would be like allowed to play, but she would be like like she would be kind of disqualified by default or whatever.
Yeah.
Where like it didn't end up mattering because she got out in the first question or whatever, or the second question.
Yep.
But it would have been interesting if like Arissa just kind of like randomly eliminated her, even if she got the question right at some point, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, or her like box was just blank kind of thing. And then just a couple questions and see you later.
Yeah, or
it would have been cool.
Or maybe they like give her an earpiece and tell her when she's supposed to throw or something like that. I don't know. But
yeah.
But yeah, it didn't end up mattering because our new HoH for the week is Beth. My winner pick. Yeah. I'm pretty. We'll talk about. I'm pretty happy with Beth's HoH so far. So we come back from the feeds here, and Beth is talking about who she's going to be nominating and who her target's going to be. And mostly we're seeing something interesting, which is that Brayden is actually pretty heavily hanging out with the Sunsetters in the HoH room, where you have kind of like the trio, and Kiefer's kind of like mulling around. But Brayden has also been there, and as I mentioned, like him and Ty have had this like weird flirtmance thing. I don't know if like yeah, it is quite random. Like I don't know what like Ty's sexuality is. He hasn't really mentioned it. But it's unclear whether Ty is like using this kind of flirtmance thing not to bring up Kevin Martin too many times, but in kind of a Kevin Martin-esque way of just like trying to use it for game to try to bring Braden in. It seems like he's into it, so yeah, cool, good for them.
Well, I mean, Beth kicked him to the curb. So.
That's true. Yeah, it's been pretty clear at this point that Beth has chosen Jed at this point, and lock it in. Hopefully we don't have to have this conversation again. But it seems like mostly we saw the kiss in the rain on the Thursday night episode. That the couple that Beth has chosen herself to be with primarily is going to be Jed, and Jed is going to sleep in the HoH bed with him. Supposedly, some things might have happened between the two of them in the HoH bed. I'm not here to hear kissing and tell, but it seems like things got pretty serious, pretty hot and heavy. They went over the top, under the covers.
Oh.
And so.
I mean, who really won Big Brother this week? I mean, is it
that's
Jed?
true. Who's the HoH? Is it?
Who's the real winner? Who's
Well,
the real winner here?
as we'll talk about Beth's plans, I think Beth is pretty securely making this HoH her own, and not really kowtowing too heavily to Jed and Ty. But yeah, so we come back, and initially the expected target is brought up, which is Ro. Everyone is kind of expecting Ro to be the target for the week. He's won the last 2 vetoes. He's kind of like escaped by the skin of his teeth. And at this point, people are, in my opinion, legitimately afraid of Ro for like a reasonable reason. And they're like, okay, at some point we have to take him out. He's strong. He can win comps. He's definitely coming for the trio. It's like very blatantly clear. And he's like the most likely person to get in the way of especially Jed and Ty's ability to go deep into this game. So
yeah, most capable, arguably.
Yeah, so they start talking. They're like, okay, but what happens if Ro wins the veto? And Beth is like, well, I mean, what if I put Victoria up? What do you guys think of that? And this is kind of one of those things where you just kind of like throw it out as a feeler and just see if it's like you're casting your fishing line. You're like, let me see if I can catch a Victoria Renom here, and
see what sticks.
And surprisingly, Jed and Ty do not push back on this super heavily. They definitely consider it as like a reasonable thing. And what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, they had that whole fight in the during Victoria's first HoH. So,
oh yeah.
They kind of made up in between, but I mean, I think there's still some animosity there. And just, I don't see Jed and Ty wanting to take Victoria any more than they would want to take Beth. So I think it doesn't impact them at all. Like, it's kind of just like, oh, anyone but us. And whereas they're coming into what, final 9?
It's final 9 right now. It's going to be final 8 after this eviction. Or I guess final 7 after the double eviction. They don't know that necessarily.
Yeah, because I imagine they still think they have Kiefer tied up. So they still have 4.
Yeah. They still think they think they have Tina tied up. But they do not.
Oh, my God.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, in their looking through their lenses, like, it's cool. See you later, Victoria, because she's clearly capable of like winning out if she needs to.
Yeah, she's capable. She's shown she's capable of winning comps. She's in their minds kind of like served her purpose, right? And she's already somebody that they're looking to take out at final 8, final 7, final 6, anyways. So they're not super upset about the idea of her being taken out as a backup plan to Ro, though. They like Beth is pitching this in a way where she's like, what if this was the plan, and the plan was always to backdoor Victoria, and we planned, if we won, or we being Jed and Ty planned, if we won the veto, to take Ro off the block so that I can backdoor Victoria. And that they're less interested in because they're more scared of Ro. But they're at
Yeah.
the very least open to the idea of Victoria being taken out this week. If Roe cannot be, if Roe wins the veto himself, or if Braden, for instance, wins the veto and uses it on Roe or something like that. So
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable, and why not? Like,
Yeah,
there's no one else I could really. There's no one else like in Beth's position that like is arguably like worth a shot right now. I mean, obviously all of them have to go at some point, but like,
yeah.
why not? Like, why not Rower, Victoria? I think either one of them is a really good outcome for them.
No, I agree. I think, especially for Beth right now, getting out Victoria is integral to her maintaining this position with the guys, because Victoria is like very openly indicating that she's going to want to try to take that position from her. She spent last week trying to make it seem like Beth was the invisible HOH to people like Austin and Braden. She has been kind of like a little bit combative to Beth, and as they're having this conversation up in the HOH room, Tina and Tara are talking downstairs, or not downstairs, but in the bedroom, and Tara knows that she's likely going up as a pawn next to Roe, and they're talking about, okay, what can we do here? What is our best move? And Tina and Tara also come up with the idea, we need Roe in the house to take a shot at Ty and Jed, because Roe can win comps, right?
Yep.
And they know that Victoria won't actually take a shot at Ty and Jed, but they also have information that Victoria had previously talked to them in secret about wanting to take a shot at Beth, and potentially wanting to put up Beth and Braden, for instance, if she won this HOH. And that's information that Tina and Tara bring to Beth. And now Beth has information that Victoria has been concocting this plan to potentially go after her. Tina and Tara extrapolate and say, oh, she would have put up you and Jed, which is kind of a white lie. But now Beth has double the reason to go after Victoria, and she very openly trusts Tina in particular. Tina does a very good job here of pushing this and of selling this move to Beth and saying, like, this is a move for you, this is a move to separate yourself from the guys, and you got to be your own woman, you got to like do your own thing, this is your HOH, and it's very good.
Yeah, Tina is playing chess, not checkers.
Oh god.
Like Tara is, but she's like, oh, cool move, good job.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take credit for that too. But like, no, Tina's like, I think Tina's probably the best player in the house right now.
Yeah, I agree. On paper, Tina is the most effective at Big Brother. But Tina has had a lot of bad luck with comp outcomes.
Yeah.
But her having bad luck with comp outcomes is still putting her in a position where she's likely to go far. So if comps start going her way in the next few rounds of the game, particularly in this double eviction, she could definitely end up in a spot where she is in a position to win. And even after this week, because of how much resistance Beth saw from Ty and Jed, and because she's at least aware enough in the game that even though she can't directly go after Ty and Jed, she doesn't want to go to the end with them because she'll lose. Beth has started vocalizing to the cameras that her ideal final three is actually her, Braden, and Tina, which is great news for Tina. that's pretty it's pretty decent.
I think Tina wins there.
Yeah, especially if she can get Tara down towards the end game as well. Those are people that she could feasibly beat in endgame comps, that Tara could potentially beat in endgame comps. So yeah, I think that Tina did a lot of really good work this week. And after these nominations come through, pretty quickly we get the veto competition, which I believe was some sort of grill-sponsored competition. Because we know that Big Brother Canada is sponsored by a grilling company whose name is slipping my mind now. Obviously not doing a great job of nailing that into my brain, so I can't remember the name of the company. But apparently the comp was something with like a spatula where you had to like...
Probably Weber.
Oh, it was Weber. Yes, it is Weber. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that a lot in commercials. So yeah. It's
Oh yeah.
Weber.
Because
Anyway,
one of the things that the winner of the season is going to get is $10,000 of grills and grilling accessories from Weber. It's like propane and propane accessories. So the comp was something like you have a big spatula and they had to like use it to like move like corn and shit like that into like an area, and they had to like assemble it into a puzzle or something. So another kind of like 3D puzzle situation, which Ro has obviously been shown to be good at, and a heavy physical element as well. And the only other like big strong dude that was playing besides Ro was Ty, who had been talking about like kind of being on the fence about whether he wanted to win the comp in the first place or not. And we end up with Ro winning his 3rd straight veto.
Jesus.
Yeah, truly the veto king. Yeah.
Yeah, go Ro, man.
Yeah, I believe he now joins something like 8 other people for what is a consecutive veto record in North American Big Brother. I think it's 9 people now who share the record at 3. So if he wins again next week, or I guess he wins the veto in the double eviction, he will hold the record for most consecutive veto comp wins. And given that there's a decent chance he ends up on the block, he is likely to play in the veto comp.
I wouldn't doubt him and Tara being up there in a double.
Yeah. And so yeah.
At some point in double.
Yeah. Obviously, Rohan's going to be using the veto on himself. So Beth is like, okay, you got to make the move, right? You put the dominoes in place. And now as we've learned from past mistakes of the Sunsetters earlier in the season, is when you've put the dominoes in place for a move and you've put all of this work in, you have to follow through, right?
Come on, how do you not? They're lined up, man.
Yep.
We've been standing there. Point of the game.
Yeah.
Knock them down.
She's already had these conversations with Tina and Tara. She's had these conversations with Brayden. She's had this conversation with Ty and Jed. She's had this conversation with even Rohan at this point. She had this conversation with Kiefer. Literally everybody in the house except for Victoria before the veto ceremony is aware that there has been talks in place for Victoria to be backdoored here and taken out of the game. And
does the house like 100% know that she was the HoH, invisible HoH?
Yes, everybody at this point knows that she was the invisible HoH. Yes, yeah, she comes out. Sure. She comes out and tells the trio openly. So basically, at the point at the end of last week, the only ones who weren't 100% sure were Brayden and Ro, and at this point, they're basically pretty close to 100% sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, so like Brayden's there's no sweat off Brayden's back. The Victoria is getting taking the hit here. Better her than him, or better her than Ro even for him. And obviously, Ro's not going to cry too much over this. So yeah, we had the veto ceremony today on Monday, and apparently Beth gave kind of a savage speech and was like, something about like, you think you can trust somebody when you can't, and the house is about to get spicy. And then she kind of like rips V's line to use it against her, the spicy V line. Nice. And Victoria has been put on the block.
See you later.
Well, you don't know about this house, but
yeah, honestly, I don't know. It could go either way, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, final knobs.
No one likes her. Like, at least,
well,
from what I've seen, like
Kiefer likes her.
Some people. Yeah, but Kiefer. I mean, what pull does he have? I mean, he's actually not in a bad. He's not in a great spot, but he's not in a bad spot. Kind of floating right now.
Yeah, Kiefer's a tricky one.
Yeah, I think he's in a very interesting position, and that's besides the point here. But yeah, I don't think many people like Victoria.
So Feeds come back from the veto ceremony, and Victoria's up in the HOH room with Beth and Jed, and she's like talking 100 miles a minute at them, saying like, oh, I never would have turned on you guys. This was stupid. I was with you guys to the end. They had this like Ghost Peppers alliance, which was the trio plus Victoria, that like Victoria seemingly could have been, true to. Like it's very odd because she's simultaneously made insinuations that she wants to target Beth in the near future, even as soon as like very close to the near future. But she's also said to the camera, "Oh, I want to go to the Final Four with the Ghost Peppers," which is terrible for her game because she's like obviously the 4 out of that 4, and like she can't beat Jed or Ty in a jury vote. So like that would be so like perplexingly stupid. But I mean that's Kiefer wants to do that, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that she actually feels that way. But yeah, it's just very odd. I think that this is kind of like a fundamental, like this is like the fundamental flaw with Victoria as a player, is that she's so chaotic that she's impossible to read or predict. And that's kind of where the trio ends up with this move, where they're like, we think she could be with us, but we don't know for sure. She's so unpredictable that, like, for all we know, she could actually be planning on putting up Beth and Jed the next time she gets power. Like, you literally just don't know with her.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like she's overplaying Big Brother.
Oh,
too.
for sure, yeah.
Like, sometimes it's like being a good player is very, very different from overplaying. And because she's making so many moves, and I get it, she's been HOH twice, so she's had the opportunity, but she's overplayed both those HOHs. So it's just like, good for you for making moves, but they were sloppy, and I think she's also just trying way too hard. Like I said, she's overplaying. I think we all can agree on that.
Yeah, no, I mean she has made a number of like fundamental mistakes, and she's obviously incredible television, incredible feeds, but like trusting Ty and Jed, or like wanting to work with Ty and Jed down to the end, and like basing her entire like macro strategy around that is terrible. Targeting Austin and Brayden last week is terrible. Trying to blame Beth on it and doing a bad job and executing that is really bad. Giving ammo, like talking so much to so many people that you're giving ammo to people to like throw you under the bus and use you as a scapegoat. And this is something that happened in right after both of her HOHs. In the first week, she gave ammo to people like Kyle, Rowe, Austin, and Brayden, who, the 4 of them, went and threw her under the bus immediately to Kiefer after Kiefer won that HOH. And this is, something that didn't end up biting her in the butt that time, because instead of targeting her, Kiefer used that as an opportunity to say, like, hey, all of your friends just threw you under the bus, you should work with me instead, which I think was very smart. But it's something that's going to catch up to you eventually, and now we see here where the second that Tina and Tara's feet are put to the fire even a little bit, they're going to throw Victoria under the bus and use all of the ammo that Victoria has been feeding them the last week or two to get Beth to target Victoria over them. And so, yeah, it's just...
It's terrible. It's almost like Victoria... sometimes I can't tell like if she's self-aware that she's overplaying, but it also feels like she wants to get the satisfaction from other players in the house knowing that she's playing the game too. Like telling her all these moves like after the HOHs, it's just like, why would you do that? And even if she's so committed to Jed and Ty going back to this invisible HOH week, why would you not tell them about putting Austin and Brayden up then? Like, why would you not say I'm the invisible HOH? Because that is probably what they would have done anyway. Like, why would you, if you really want to go to Final Four with them and be an idiot, like, why not? I just don't get it. I think no matter how she plays the game, her best case scenario is third place. Like, 10 out of 10 times this season. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think that's even like third place is probably, like, a little generous. It's generous, yeah. Like, there's just a way that she plays is just not it's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's too much. People are gonna connect dots. She's gonna make a mistake somewhere every time.
Yeah.
You can't make too many promises. Like, you just can't do it.
Yeah, and especially, like, I agree that the way that she like, even in the conversation that was shown on the episode between her and Kiefer in the OLG room, where she's telling Kiefer that she's the invisible HOH, and she just keeps on like going like, oh no, I'm actually just pulling your leg. Oh no, I actually am the HOH. Oh no, I'm just pulling. Like, she just does that for fun, just to entertain herself. And like, that's just not.
That scene right there is how she actually.
Yeah, that's yes. It's like a great like representation.
Yeah.
Like it's like a little like ecosphere of how she how she holds herself within the game, where she just kind of like plays chaos first and then like strategy like maybe second or third if she gets to it.
A little too spicy, V. Maybe,
yeah.
Down a little.
Yeah, maybe go to like a habanero, instead of the ghost pepper, right?
No one eats ghost pepper for fun, all right?
Yeah.
No one does that for fun.
Yeah.
You eat a little habanero, you put it on.
You can make some salsa out of it. It's very good. But like, people eat ghost peppers. People eat ghost peppers for YouTube videos, for content, all right? That's kind of what Victoria's game is. Her game is content. It's just not. It's entertaining to watch somebody like eat a ghost pepper and like cry and whatever and like freak out, But like, it's not it's not sustenance, right? It's not like actual like,
Yeah.
It's not sustainable, right? I think it's just a good metaphor here.
She would be a great guest on The Last Dab. I mean, Hot Ones.
Yeah, Hot Ones. Yeah.
The Last Dab. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's what Victoria's like. That's gonna be her like. What I think about every time now. I picture Victoria.
It's just a ghost pepper. Yeah. Well,
just a ghost pepper that no one wants, but like, it's fun. But
yeah, I think it's a great metaphor. It's just like.
It really is.
She's great the first time, just to like have a moment and create chaos and like create this great content, but you just can't. It's just not something that you can grab onto and like have for week after week after week. It's too much.
Too many ghost peppers.
It's too much.
Too many ghost peppers.
That'll
be on. That's how we're gonna eulogize her probably. Next episode.
Yeah, I mean, we'll eulogize her as well as somebody else from this double eviction, most likely, unless something changes here, which it's not impossible. Like, she is campaigning harder than, I saw somebody tweet that, like, Victoria is campaigning more than literally the first 5 evictees combined, and it's only been like a few hours, so, like, she's not going to go out without a fight, she's not going to go out without a little bit of spice. So maybe she's going to need to flip 4 votes or 3 votes plus Beth as a tiebreaker. The problem is I just don't see it happening, right? Because I don't think she can flip. Yeah. She's not flipping Tina, obviously. I don't think she can flip Ro or Brayden. So her options are basically to flip Ty, Jed, and Kiefer and Beth as a tiebreaker. That's her most likely path to staying. And she's already started to like get Ty and Jed to like consider the fact that this was bad for them, which I do think it is bad for them because they might think that Victoria is unpredictable, and she is, but she would have been loyal to Ty and Jed more so than a bunch of other people in the house. Tina and Tara and Brayden are all 100% are putting Ty and Jed in the block if they win the next HoH. Whereas Victoria would not have necessarily. So there is a chance there. However, after Victoria leaves this conversation, they bring Kiefer in, and they're like, Kiefer, we had been hearing these things from Ro, from Tina, from Tara, that Victoria was targeting Beth and Jed. as the next time she wins power. And there's this thing about like, oh, Victoria was throwing Beth's bag around, or was like saying, oh, I just want to take Beth's bag and just like chuck it down the stairs to get her out of here. Or like, and then there was this thing where after Beth got her HOH room, Victoria like brought Beth's bag into the HOH room, and Beth was like, "Wait, are you trying to like trying to get me out of your bedroom that quick? Like, goddamn!" And so there's this whole like thing of like, you know, did Victoria say this thing about Beth's bag, and is she actually targeting Beth? And Kiefer comes in afterwards, and they ask him straight up, or they say like, you know, this is stuff that we had heard. But we don't know, because now Vic is telling us that it's not true, and we might believe her. And Kiefer was like, no, I was in that conversation. And yeah, she definitely was the way more aggro one in terms of like wanting to target Beth. Not necessarily Jed, but Beth. And yeah, she did say the thing about the bag. So it seems like that has kind of tampered the potential of a flip here. But who knows?
Who knows with this house, but I think you're right in that it wouldn't be the best move.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was anyone other than Tara, I'd say probably go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But like Tara, just there's no shot in hell Tara wins. I'm sorry.
Oh no, Tara's not. No, Tara is 100% not winning the game. There is no one she beats in a jury vote. She'll get shut out 7-0 in any jury vote, in my opinion. Yeah. Well, she might. There's an outside chance she gets Tina's jury vote in some scenarios. But,
but Tina's not already there.
Sure. Yeah.
But either way, like, I think Victoria v. Tara here. I would probably go with Victoria.
Oh, for sure.
Tina is just a. Tara is just a vote. At that point, like, I don't see her winning many comps at all. I don't think she's going to win a comp this season. I'm sorry, Tara, but like
she came in second in the Invisible HOH.
Yeah, I think she needs another comp like that. I think, but honestly, one HOH though could change that whole narrative. So I hope it happens.
I do think
she last week she won.
I do think that Tara could also win an endurance style comp that favors somebody who's like shorter and lighter, right? Like a wall comp. I think she could be good at. Just because she's 5'0", and she's said a bunch of times in her preseason stuff. So
yeah, no, I think she could. It's potential, but you kind of have to see it to believe it, kind of thing.
Sure.
But no, I think Victoria is kind of like a spicy move. Why not?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I think that most people are like, especially Beth, right? I don't think Beth wants to have made this move and have it miss. Like, even if she trusts Vic, even if, like, Vic, like, convinces her that she can be trustworthy, even if, you know, she, like, gets the guys on board, I just can't see Beth wanting to, like, have gone through this HOH, nominated 3 people, pissed off a bunch of people, created all of this chaos, and then at the end of the week have Tara be the one to go. It's just a huge, huge waste.
Yeah, and that would be real bad for Jed and Ty to go back on their ally too. Well, I mean, I guess Beth would have to also go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
But even if Victoria somehow stays, that is the easiest fuel ever for her to, you know, target them right back.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And Victoria is, if there's anyone in the house that's gonna flip, and probably gonna flip 20 times, it's Victoria.
Yeah. All right, so. I guess while we're here, we're probably going to try to come back sometime after, like shortly after the double eviction. I don't know if it probably won't be Thursday, probably won't be Friday, maybe Saturday or Sunday. We might try to get the episode out because I'm sure there'll be a lot to talk about. But just to preview what we can kind of look forward to in terms of who's targeting who. So going into the double eviction, assuming Victoria is evicted in the first half, we have 7 people playing for HOH because it's everybody but Beth. So Tina, Tara, Ro, and Brayden. All 4 of them, to my knowledge, would nominate Ty and Jed immediately on the block as their nominees.
Yep.
If one of them were to win the veto, I believe they would put up Beth as their replacement. Now, there is a chance that Beth is picked for the veto, wins the veto, and pulls down Jed, for instance, I assume. if that's the case, it's unclear who would put up, like who each of those four would put up. Whether they would put up Kiefer as a pawn and try to force out Ty, because they would have the votes. Theoretically, it would be 5 votes, and they would have 3 of them. Or if they were to like do what I would consider a bad move and put up one of the 4 of them, who knows? That's like the only kind of really interesting outcome that can happen with one of the 4 of them winning HOH.
You got to put up Kiefer, because if you put up one of your own, there goes a vote.
I agree. But somebody like Tina and Tara, especially Tina, who has a good relationship with Kiefer, might find that difficult. But hopefully they at least realize that they need to do that in order to make sure they get the other guy out, which would most likely be Ty. So that's kind of where we're at. So 4 out of 7 HOHs. The most likely person to be evicted in the second half of the double eviction would be Ty, followed by Jed. Right?
Yeah.
Ty would be the target unless he wins the veto. And if Ty wins the veto, Jed is the most likely person to go instead. So, agreed. Assuming everybody has an equal chance of winning the HOH, higher than 50% that one of Ty or Jed will leave in the second half of the double. Now we have Ty, Jed, and Kiefer. Ty and Jed would nominate, I believe again, Ro and Tara, with the intent of taking out Ro. They've also had a lot of conversations, and Kiefer has also been involved in these conversations, about do they need to backdoor Ro? Because he's the veto king, right? They're very afraid of missing another shot on him. And they probably should be. Like, he's shown to be very good at these vetoes that have been pretty consistently very skill-oriented and winnable.
It's a pretty real fear. I mean, at that point, though, do you just put up Tina Tara? No, because they still trust Tina.
Yeah, it's very tricky.
Do you put Braden up at that point? Well, no.
Yeah.
I think Jed would have to win. For
Yeah.
successful Rohan backdoor.
Well, that's the thing. I think Ty and Jed have had a conversation about using Kiefer as a pawn.
Oh, man. Kind of like the only option.
And so they've talked about wanting to put up Tara and Kiefer potentially. They've also talked about Tara Braden, Tara Tina. And like, they floated all of these as options of like if they want to backdoor Ro and try to have a situation where he doesn't play. But even if they don't put him up, there's still a 60% chance that he gets drawn for the veto anyways. So it's it's still like likely, or it's more likely than not that he'll play in the veto, even if they don't put him up initially. And it is possible that he wins and protects himself. In which case, somebody like Tara will probably take the bullet.
I mean, at that point, you got to think what type of veto comps come in double evictions. They're always quick. Isn't that like ball pit one?
Yeah, the clown shoe.
Ball pit
yeah.
Run?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's pretty standard.
Yeah, so you got to think like what kind of comp would come. It's probably going to be a quick physical comp. Which I mean, Ro is demonstrated to be kind of physical, but I still think Jed or Ty probably beat him. But but it's tough to take that 60% shot. Like I see why you would want to, but then you're really just pissing off Kiefer. And then if Ro ends up playing anyway and takes,
or like
I think you probably take off Tara. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
that's very messy. It's very messy.
You're real. I think you will almost have to put him up.
Yeah.
I think you kind of have to put him up.
Yeah, definitely the messiest scenarios involve Kiefer, Ty, and Jed winning the HOH and then Ro winning the veto. Because it's very unclear. It's very unclear if they would nominate him to begin with. It's very unclear if he wins the veto who would end up being the target, whether it would be Braden, whether it would be Tara, whether somebody ends up on the block who shouldn't, and there's potential for a shot to be taken. Because Kiefer has talked about using Jed as a pawn as well, so that he can guarantee Jed plays in the veto and potentially beat Ro. These are all like very surface level, like introductory conversations, but
Are they aware of the double eviction? Or just guessing because it's probably going to happen?
They're speculating that it'll happen. Yes, they don't obviously.
Yeah.
You can never know for sure. Like they don't tell them, but they it's kind of at that point where like it's been enough weeks where they're like, okay, there's probably going to be a double here, right? Like we're getting kind of down to the nitty gritty. Yeah, it's got to be this week or next, and so they're definitely planning for this week to be a double, and like making sure all of their plans are in a row. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they land on. I think it's probably just correct to put up Tara and Ro, and if Ro wins the veto again, then I guess he'll try again next week. But
right, yeah,
it's gonna be tough.
Put up Brayden.
Yeah,
at that point, put up Brayden or Tina, and just probably honest. That's tough. Yeah, either one. I mean, who cares if one of the side goes?
Yeah.
If it's not Ro, then
it's tricky. Like the house structure is the house structure is very messy here. But it is kind of roughly like a 4-4 split, assuming Victoria leaves after Victoria's gone.
Yeah, it's with Kiefer being the most likely to switch sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So very interesting. Especially if somebody like Ty does end up going in the second half of the double eviction, that could really blow the game open in terms of like who could potentially end up winning. We'll continue this like Ro versus Jed feud, especially if Ro is the one to win this HoH and take Ty out.
Imagine.
Yeah, that could be very interesting.
Insane.
That would really open up the game for people like Tina and Beth to have a much better shot at winning. Like the best case scenario for Tina is Ro winning the HoH and taking Ty out. That's phenomenal for Tina. And she's aware of that. So yeah, it'll be very interesting. I think that like after we see how the double eviction plays out, and especially after we find out who the final 7 HoH is, we'll have a very clear picture of who can win this game. Because I think at this point, it's Ty or Jed, assuming one or both of them survive the double, Tina, Beth, and then maybe like Kiefer is an outside shot, and then maybe Ro is an outside shot if he wins out. I think it's unlikely that Brayden wins. I think it's impossible for Tara to win. So right now we have kind of like a top 3 to 4 and then like kind of like a sort of 5 and 6 like outside shot right now. If Ty leaves in the second half of the double, I think the winner of the season is Jed, Beth, or Tina most likely. That's what I'll say.
No, I think that's pretty spot on.
Or Kiefer.
Hopefully we're dead wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think this looks great for the have not row, right? I think the most likely winners at this point are our 3 winner picks and Tina, who I don't think any of us really saw coming in the pregame. So
not at all. I didn't expect her to be such like a I don't want to say a puppet master anyway, but such a she's kind of like in control in a weird way.
Yeah, she's definitely doing way, way better than I could ever have anticipated. And she's definitely the most capable, like, social strategic player on the season. She's just not playing. Like, this week she played very well. And if she continues doing what she did this week into the future, if comps start going her way, if Ty and Jed get broken up in the second half of the double, especially, I think that she has a really good shot of making a run for it. But it's just a matter of, comps have to start going her way. The right people have to start getting evicted. She has to start playing more consistently, aggressively, and she has to be in a position where she can potentially win endgame comps, or at least have somebody like Tara there who can win endgame comps, maybe, or Kiefer maybe, or Beth maybe, if Beth loses both Jed and Ty at some point. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. The season is definitely still relatively wide open, and we're about to end up in the final 7. That's kind of what you like to see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty wide open for a while. I think we're in for a pretty good jury. And if Tara just can Tina, oh my God, can just turn it on like a little bit, then it'll be good. Yeah. If she's on 20 right now, if she goes like 40, 50, 60, there we go.
Yeah, and again, I think this HoH week for Beth, like even though she was a little bit kind of teetering on whether or not Victoria was the correct move. She kind of kowtowed a little bit to the guys, but her hand ended up being forced by Ro winning the veto himself, and I think that's a really lucky break for her. It forced her into making the move that was probably correct for her now. And I think this was probably the most effective HoH of the season so far, and it's setting her up to be a top contender to win the season. So very happy with that. Very happy with the way Tina played this. I'm very impressed with how Brayden has integrated himself socially after Austin leaving.
Yeah.
Not something we really talked about too much, but he's done a very good job. There were 3 people nominated this week, and he was not one of them. Which, after being nominated with your number 1 ally and basically coming out of that week with like no friends, that's pretty impressive to be able to pull that off socially. And
yeah, no, I thought it was gonna be dead in the water. Just like I'll put him up next to really anybody, and just told like a backdoor pawn for every single week. Yeah, which he still could be, but like not this week.
No, for sure. If he gets through the next like round or two, and especially with Beth being somebody who might be able to kind of like seize control, looking to take him to the final 3 even, like. You never know. Like anybody can win. Like at that point, I except for Tara, anybody can win Big Brother. Like Beth could theoretically burn a ton of bridges, and if she's sitting at the end with Brayden and everyone is fucking pissed off at Beth, then Brayden could easily win this game. Like it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. Literally everybody left in the game, even Victoria, if she somehow survives this week, except for Tara, I think, has like there's a reasonable chance for them to win. So, very, very interesting.
I think some votes are arguably locked for jury.
Sure. I think if Ty or Jed are there with anybody besides each other, they probably win. I think that Tina has a good shot of winning a jury vote against most people, but there are definitely scenarios like if Ro actually wins out and wins 7, 8 more competitions or something like that, something crazy, like you probably write the check for him. Like that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who you're next to at that point.
I think that there's reasonable paths for most of the players in the house, which is usually not what we see this late in the game. So I'm very excited. We got like a month or 2 left in the season, so we'll be back. We'll be back after the double. Hopefully it's fun. Hopefully we have a lot to talk about. And with that being said, you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at ChadleyJP, and you can find me on Twitter at ChadPerry25. Should be right below me.
Yep. Mine's also right here. You can find me on Twitter. I've been sharing on Instagram the same handle, even though I don't really use Instagram too much. But you can find me tweeting about Big Brother a lot on Twitter, along with other stuff. And the Circle UK also is wrapping up this week. Circle US is starting soon. We'll be doing influencer chat, hopefully, about the Circle US Season 2. The preview to that, the trailer to that just dropped. So look forward to that coverage, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks. And you can follow the channel, or the main channel, We Could Get Everything, on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, at We Could Get Everything, on Twitter, at WG Everything. You can follow Brian, who will hopefully be back for our next episode, fingers crossed, at the Fake BMar on Twitter. And you can also make sure to hit the subscribe button on this channel, Better Radio, where we have our podcast feed for all of our television show and other miscellaneous podcasts. We have Influencer Chat, as I mentioned, will be on this. We have a number of other television shows that will cover, or that are covered on the channel by other people. It's a lot of fun. Stay tuned for more excitement in the future.
Oh yeah.
See you later.